time ago, I was in basic training in the Army, and I had the day off, and I went into Kansas City, and I saw a sign. And the sign said, tonight at 8 o'clock at the Parkway Theater, come see Herschel, the magnificent Jew. So, of course, I was curious, and I went, and there was a good-sized crowd in the theater. And at 8 o'clock, they introduced him. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Herschel. And he came out. He was wearing a bathrobe, and removed his bathrobe, and he was perfectly naked, completely naked. Now, imagine, if you will, the largest masculine equipment you can think of. Herschel was 4 times bigger. And he had a bench in front of him, and he put 3 walnuts on the bench. And he took his masculinity in his hand, and he went whap, 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 and he smashed them to smithereens. And the audience applauded, and when they were leaving the theater, they were still applauding. 20 years later, I was again in Kansas City, and I saw the same sign. Tonight at 8 o'clock, Parkway Theater, come see Herschel, the magnificent Jew. Well, of course I went, and it's the same thing. They introduced him, he came out, took off his bathrobe. He looked exactly the same, hadn't changed it at an iota. And he put on the bench 3 coconuts, 1, 2, 3. Took his masculinity in his hands, and he went whap, 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 smashed them to smithereens. Well, naturally, I went backstage. I was curious. I said, Mr. Herschel, why did you switch from walnuts to coconuts? He said, well, my eyesight ain't what it used to be. I did not come here to be snickered at.
I really do. What's really nuts, Spirit says, what's really nuts is how they tried to take out 2 insurance claims on both buildings, claiming it was a double event to get more insurance payout. Are you talking about 9/11 in the chat? That's so funny that that's the chat I decided to read.
It's a burning it hurts like a burning burned by what the sun I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher, and it burns, burns, the ring of fire. The ring of fire. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher, and it burns, burns, burns. The ring of fire, the ring of fire. Something sweet when like me. I fell for you like a child. But the first time I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher, and it burns, burns, burns. The ring of fire. The ring of fire. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher, and it burns, burns, burns. The ring of fire. The ring of fire. The ring of fire. The ring of fire. The ring.
Well, good evening, everybody. Hello! Hello, See No Evil, Starving Autist, Corey, Flockstra Show, James Camp PC, M Stone, Maureen the Nitta, Trippycast, Dr. Cringe, what's up guys? Hello and good evening. We are gathered here this evening to talk about people lighting themselves on fire. But first, remember to smash that like button, light it on fucking fire. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, do all the shit. And if you're feeling generous in this time of economic woe, then let me direct you over to buymeacoffee.com/mooseheaven because it's cheaper than self-immolating yourself. What's up, everybody? Oh, trust me. Oh, trust me. We'll get to this. I know everybody's here for this. But we've got much more than that tonight. Oh, yes. If you've been following this channel, you know that this is not the first time somebody's lit themselves on fire for Palestine. But we've got more than that. We've got more than that. We've got granddaddy. Got Pappy George H.W. Bush. We got Obama. We got that other guy, that orange guy. We've got Grandpa Ice Cream Cone. We got all kinds of stuff. It's gonna get real weird, folks. We got a lot of stuff going on in the news, and I feel like impromptu stream, we've got to talk about some of this stuff. I've got a few opinions. What's like a pro-Palestine? Says James Camp Easy. I don't know. That's a good question. It wasn't until the 1960s when, I don't know, somebody,
let's say China,
let's say that, started dabbling in Palestinian nationalism. If you want more on that, you can go to my stream about that. China and Palestine, the secret Maoist war on Israel. Hello, Fabio Lulstein in the chat. Yeah, it's weird, folks. I don't know. I have opinions. Some of them unpopular. But as is the style, with an onion on our belts, we soldier forward on Moose Heaven, and we gotta dive deeper, and we gotta find that higher ground. That's how Obi-Wan won against Anakin, finding that higher ground. That's what we do on Moose Heaven. And you're all here to help me do that. Good evening, folks. Hello, D-Rec. It's gonna get real spicy. You might say it's a hot topic. Some people are getting a little fired up about the Middle East. worry. We'll talk about that, but first, I'd be remiss here on Moose Heaven, this show about weird conspiracy theories and Jim Jam Jive Jazz. I'd be remiss if I didn't draw attention and do somewhat of a requiem, as it were, for someone I feel like is very close to our community. That being who might be the most, dare I say, popular of the Rothschilds in our day and age, in our lifetime. Old Jacob Rothschild. Excellent. Wait. I'm sorry. My mistake. Wrong photo. I meant Jacob Rothschild. Excellent. Hashtag Illuminati hands. I'd be remiss on a show about conspiracies and weird nonsense in history if I didn't draw some attention to the passing of Jacob Rothschild. My favorite, your favorite, our favorite Rothschild. Excellent. They're the same. That's the same guy, right? Nevertheless, it's with my deepest condolences that I inform you of the passing of Jacob Rothschild. There was really sad music behind this video, and I thought, there's no sense in playing sad music for this. A devoted public servant, a passionate supporter of charitable causes. Put a pin in that. We'll miss you, Jacob Rothschild. Now, to get to the prime beef main course of this evening, I'm sure you're aware that the name Rothschild is linked inherently with Israel. Whether you know how or not, hello, Chuckles. Whether you know how or not, the name Rothschild is inherently linked with Israel. And that's because of this guy. Walter Rothschild, seen here riding a giant tortoise. Yes. Fun fact that you'll only get here on Moose Heaven because that's how I like to roll. Did you know that one of the founding fathers of Israel, Walter Rothschild, rode around on a giant pet tortoise? I'm not making this up. Not only that, he had a cart pulled by giraffes. Put that in your pocket. You all know about Rothschilds in Israel, but did you know that Walter Rothschild rode around on a cart pulled by giraffes? You don't believe me? I feel like who better to lead us into the prime beef topic of this evening? Israel. But none other than Jacob Rothschild himself. How is the name Rothschild associated with Israel? How did that happen? How did Israel become a thing? And why is this dude being pulled around by giraffes? All that and more. Stick around, won't you?
It's 67 words long, it's 100 years old, and it changed the course of history for the Middle East and the Jewish people. The Balfour Declaration, the expression of the British government's support for a Jewish home in Palestine, was sent by British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour to the second Lord Rothschild. I'm here in Buckinghamshire at Waddesdon Manor to speak with the fourth Lord Rothschild about the Balfour Declaration, what it means for Britain, for the Jewish people, and the Rothschild family.
The Foreign Office, November the 2nd, 1917. Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet.
So it's possibly the most famous letter in modern Jewish history, and it begins with 3 words, Dear Lord Rothschild. Why was it that this letter was sent by the Foreign Secretary to your great-uncle Walter?
It's an interesting question because he was really interested in ornithology, although he became interested in Zionism. I think the reason was this, that it was primarily a movement from Eastern Europe, but they didn't clarify who was in charge of that movement. And in addition, it was, after all, in Great Britain. So they felt that the Rothschild family should be the one to whom it was addressed. And Walter was Lord Rothschild, and he was a Zionist. And those really are the background reasons.
Tell us a little bit more about Walter, the second Lord Rothschild, because he was an unusual and colourful character.
He was a deeply eccentric man. But from a very early age, his passion was collecting. He rode about Tring Park on a giant tortoise. He had a zebra carriage.
A carriage pulled by zebras.
Yes. He collected on a massive scale.
You're only going to get that kind of information here. The founder of Israel was pulled around by a cart pulled by giraffes. Amazing.
Birds, insects, fleas,
It was
butterflies.
the largest single collection created by a single individual.
I think that's true. I think certainly in Great Britain, I think probably anywhere, he was the greatest collector of ornithological material.
And here it is, the Balfour Declaration. What do you feel when you see it here?
I genuinely feel it's one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of the Jewish people. If you think it took 3,000 years to get to this. And then you say, how did this miracle happen? It's the most incredible piece of opportunism. I mean, if you think you had an impoverished would-be scientist, Chaim Weizmann, who somehow gets to England, meets a few people, including members of my family, seduces them. He has such great charm.
Seduces.
And conviction. He gets to Balfour, and he unbelievably persuades Balfour and Lloyd George, the Prime Minister, and most of the ministers, that this idea of the national home for Jews should be allowed to take place. I mean, it's so unlikely. Then he starts to fight a difficult battle with the British cabinet, and this letter goes through 5 drafts, as you know. And in the end, it comes out as a rather compromising letter. I mean, the essential point is there for the Jewish community to fasten on to. You have the first bit, which promises a national home rather than the national home. And then you have the bit that nothing that's to be done should in any way harm the Arab community.
put a pin in that.
But you come back to the big point, which is that this is perhaps the greatest event in Jewish life for thousands of years. And it's a miracle that it took place. I mean, Israel is a patchwork of different immigrants from different countries. And you have the religious, you have the non-religious, you have a town like Tel Aviv, which is attractive to the kind of business community, to what I would call ordinary city life. And then you have Jerusalem, which remains a very religious city and full of conflict between Arab neighbors and itself. If you take the Orthodox community, it's important that they have employment.
Put a pin in that.
And we're trying to develop programs which it's possible for them to undertake. Similarly, you have a problem with Arab unemployment, and we set up jointly with the government employment centers to facilitate greater employment of Arabs within Israel. And so we're an active foundation trying to help with these fissures in Israeli life and to do some good.
Just billionaires doing some philanthropy.
I can just ask you to think about the next centennial, 100 years' time, and just maybe share some of your hopes, your aspirations about where Israel will be.
What does one hope for? One, of course, hopes for a peaceful relationship with Israel's neighbors, and that's going to be the most difficult matter of all to achieve. But even now you can see, with the disarray in the Middle East and the importance of relationships that Israel is developing, not only with Jordan, but also with Egypt and indeed with Saudi Arabia, even if they're not publicized because of the Sunni-Shiite war, there's hope. And I think if you take the need of Arab nations to have intelligence help, and if on the other hand you take compassion and generosity coming from Israel to Palestinian territories and its less fortunate neighbors, there are grounds for optimism. And I am an optimist.
Lord Rothschild, thank you very much indeed.
No, thank you.
Oh, eternal optimist. Lord Rothschild, we'll miss you around here. We'll miss arbitrarily throwing every accusation your way of everything that goes wrong in the world, Jacob Rothschild. We'll miss you. But that leads to my next topic, of course. We're all gathered here to talk about Israel and Palestine and all of that. And I know what you're really here for. I know what all of you came because of the thumbnail, because of the hot topic. You all came to talk about that person that lit themselves on fire in front of the Israeli building, right? You came to talk about that, right? But no. Not that one. Not that one. The other one. The other one that if you follow this channel, nobody talked about. Except for us. Except for us here on Moose Heaven. We talked about it. It got swept under the rug 2 months ago. Let's go back in time. Let's go back in time 2 months ago. I was paying attention, were you? Let's talk about that other person that lit themselves on fire for Palestine.
Here at home, a dramatic scene outside the Israeli consulate in Atlanta when police say a protester appeared to set themselves on fire. A security guard also injured. ABC's Rena Roy is here now with the latest on that. Good morning, Rena.
Gio, good morning to you. Police are calling this an extreme act of political protest, saying a Palestinian flag was found at the scene of the fire. You can see burnt pieces of clothing and a security guard being put into the ambulance. All of this unfolding right outside the Israeli consulate in downtown Atlanta Friday, just after 12 p.m. Police say that guard noticed someone stopped outside the building trying to light themselves on fire. He immediately jumped in and tried to stop the protester, but instead ended up getting burns on his wrist and leg, and that protester was taken to the hospital in critical condition. Investigators say an officer was able to respond quickly because of dedicated patrols at that location, along with other Jewish and Muslim areas in the city. The Israeli consulate releasing a statement saying it is tragic to see the hate and incitement toward Israel expressed in such a horrific way. Meanwhile, authorities say they don't believe there is any connection to terrorism. Ariel?
An awful scene there, Rena. Thank you.
Who is right, Corey? Because, to my knowledge, there was no follow-up to this. This happened 2 months ago. Some chick lit herself on fire in front of an Israeli consulate. And nobody talked about it except for Moose Heaven. We talked about it. We talked about it. Weird. Weird that got swept under the rug. Memory hold. Nobody remembers that. There was no follow-up. I don't know who the person was. You don't know who the person was. If somebody knows any more than I do, please tell me. I'm a little lazy. And I couldn't find anything else about this case. But there's an awful lot about our next case. Oh boy. Everybody's got an opinion about this, and they're all shit. But in case you didn't know, it happened again. It's really not that graphic, trust me.
I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest. And I will no longer be complicit in genocide.
Flame on.
Is Aaron Bushnell. I am an active duty member of the United States Air Force, and I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest.
I just find it weird that everybody's talking about this and everybody forgot that this already happened 2 months ago. Nobody talked about that. Nobody talked about that one. Weird.
Weird.
Nevertheless, yeah, I know this has been a spicy topic lately. I know. But for those of you who don't know, need to be caught up to speed, you know, have a little fire lit underneath of you to understand where this is all coming from. So what happened to this guy?
And we are following the latest developments this morning in the case of a man who set himself on fire right outside the Israeli embassy. The Air Force confirming he is an active duty airman. Juliana Valencia is live outside the embassy with more. Juliana, could you tell us more about what happened?
Hey, Jimmy and Tony. So this happened around 1 p.m. yesterday. And before the airman set himself on fire, he started streaming a video on Twitch, which is too graphic to show in its entirety. But in it, he calmly walks up to the Israeli embassy. And as he does that, he says he's about to engage in an extreme act of protest.
I'd say, and there's another thing that every edit cuts out. But there's something that he says before he does that extreme act of protest. There's a word that he uses that everybody conveniently cuts out in the media. And that is that he has to stop the colonialism. Whoa. That's a buzzword that automatically tips me off and tells me there's something more on about this. Look, you guys know, I know this guy was brainwashed into this. It's kind of sad. It's very sad. But nevertheless, he's okay, right? He's okay. Please tell me he's okay.
Genocide against the Palestinian people. Then he dumps a water bottle over his head and lights himself on fire. In the video, he repeatedly shouts, "Free Palestine," after lighting the fire. He burns for about a minute and collapses on the ground before Secret Service officers begin to extinguish the fire. Police said an explosive ordnance disposal unit had been called to check his car, but later said that no hazardous materials were found. As for the airman's condition this morning, the last confirmed information that we have is that he had critical life-threatening injuries.
No,
Tony?
he's dead.
All
He's
right,
definitely
Juliana,
dead.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, he's definitely dead. How do I know that? Because people are making a fucking martyr out of this guy. And it's gross. And we're going to talk about it because I have opinions about it. Hello, King Yeti. I want to talk about this because I think it's fucking gross. I think it's fucking obvious where it's coming from. If you've been paying attention at all to the stuff that we've been talking about on the stream, I think you already know where a lot of this goes to where a lot of the roads lead towards.
Let's say China.
Let's say that for sake of argument, but I won't get into that yet. Let's talk about the Human Torch. Why are people making a hero out of this guy? Well, let's find out.
All right, new tonight, people are paying tribute to the U.S. service member who set himself on fire outside of the Israeli embassy in D.C.
25-year-old Aaron Bushnell, an active duty member of the U.S. Air Force, died in that fire yesterday. He was protesting Israel's military action in Gaza.
Our Adam Longo stopped by tonight's vigil in Northwest to talk with people about the message.
For a couple of hours earlier tonight, there were a couple hundred people here outside of the Israeli embassy in Northwest Washington, many of them feeling it was right to honor the 25-year-old active duty Air Force airman who set himself ablaze here yesterday.
Aaron, you will see!
Signs reading "Rest in Power" and "I Stand with Aaron."
Commemorating the memory of this very brave soul.
Voices pushing for peace across the Palestinian territory. Honoring a man they view as a martyr.
Aaron made a very aggressive and very poignant choice, and it needs to matter. And so I came out to help make sure that it would matter.
Do you think this message gets to the people in power?
I hope so. That's all I can do is hope.
My national security advisor tells me that we're close.
Oh, look out, Biden. Look out, Biden. Put a pin in this ice cream cone. This is immoral shit. You see that ice cream cone? Immoral. It's anti-Talmudic, anti-Semitic, You see this right here? You see Grandpa ice cream cone right here? Rubbing it in the face of Jews, the diaspora, Israel, every Jew across the world. Rubbing it in their face. He might as well just be eating pork, flavored ice cream. Immoral. More on that later. Put a pin in that. Are you going... Spirit's lost his goddamn mind. No! I haven't lost my goddamn mind. A certain sect in Israel that has something to do with all of this has lost their goddamn mind. But more on that later. I want to get back to Grandpa Ice Cream Cone.
It's not done yet.
In New York City tonight, the president telling reporters he's hopeful for a ceasefire by this time next week.
Until I see him take action on reserving funds and weapons, real action, not just hopeful words, I'll have more faith in him.
Biden facing protest votes in tomorrow's Michigan primary as Democrats consider voting uncommitted in response to his handling of the Israeli-Hamas war.
I think electorally it matters. We know what's happening in Michigan right now. We know how critical that is to a Biden re-election.
By what Aaron Bushnell did will be the catalyst that the world will recognize they've been conned into supporting un-Jewish, ungodly occupation.
Whether or not...
What? Hello? Ching chung bing bong. Speaking of putting pins in things and things we're gonna talk about tonight, what's this? Who's this Orthodox Jewish man with the Palestinian flag and a keffiyeh? Who is this guy? Why is he out here? Oh, more on that later. You might have seen these guys around. Don't trust these guys. Put a pin in that. More on that later.
Supporting un-Jewish, ungodly occupation.
Whether or not their presence initiates change, Bushnell's death has amplified their passion and purpose.
The sustained level of rage and organization that I've seen around this issue is more than any other issue I've seen in my life to this point.
Organizers say they'll return to this exact spot this coming Saturday at 1 o'clock, saying they'll bring all of their energy in an effort to convince leaders to bring an end to the conflict. From the Israeli Embassy in Northwest Washington, Adam Longo, WUSA 9.
It's unreal to me. They are comparing this guy to like the Vietnamese monk who set himself on fire in protest of Vietnam. It's unreal the amount of leftist support for this fucking guy. And again, may I remind you, this is not the first time that somebody's even lit themselves on fire in front of an Israeli building for Palestine. I don't know if it's the fact that he live streamed it, the fact that he's a military dude. I don't know what, like, if this is some fucking psyop, but nevertheless, the media is happy to be fucking Grim Reapers and fucking amplify their message right now off of this fucking guy burning to death. More on that later. Hey, do you think this is all about Israel? Times is changing, and guess what? We aren't overseen by the neocons anymore. I just want people to take a nuanced view on the Middle East, that's all. I don't have a dog in the fight. You don't have a dog in the fight. I just want people to realize that it's not 2004 anymore. But nevertheless, people are treating this fucker like a martyr. And that's what's unreal. Don't take it from me, take it from Black Drasnia here. What are you, bitch? What are you?
It is tragic that Aaron felt like he had to make the sacrifice. And that is on President Biden.
A citizen of the United States, a member of the Air Force, came here and...
Stop! I'm sorry. This is another dog and pony show that I must address here. Look, do I have to make it plain and simple that I'm no fan of Joe Biden? Do I have to spell that out? But I think that it's wild that these people are placing all of this shit on Joe Biden's shoulders. That's wild to me. Look, here's what we're gonna talk about more in the stream. Joe Biden. Let's talk about Joe Biden and his relationship with Israel. Let's talk about all of the US foreign policy and its relationship to Israel, because some people, even in our own little community, seem to think that the Zog controls everything. But it's not 2004 anymore, and the neocons aren't in control anymore. Are you paying attention? I'm gonna show you the shift in old grandpa ice cream cone. I'm gonna show you. But first, getting ahead of myself, and I think this is a good time in the stream to remind you that buymeacoffee.com/mooseheaven. All of this is supported by viewers such as yourself. So tell me more about how Aaron Bushnell, fucking martyr, fucking hero. Tell me more, Black Drasnia.
And decided to, tell his side of it, say he's not complicit in the genocide, and he lit himself on fire.
He is a martyr just like the rest of the Palestinians. Your sacrifices will not be forgotten. Your bravery will not be forgotten. The people of Palestine, thank you.
We will honor all our martyrs! We will honor all our martyrs!
As a former member in the military, I'm feeling the same way that he feels inside, watching a genocide take place.
I am a Holocaust survivor, and it saddens me profoundly that a young man took his life to bring his message to the president.
He was an incredibly brave, deeply moral man who's trying to stir the conscience of our country. And I hope that millions of Americans stand with him now.
I think a lot of us here understand why he did what he did. A lot of us are feeling like we can't do anything about what's going on.
And I don't think this is going to be the last of our military members resisting. I feel like there are many, many Aarons out there. Who's going to speak for them? Who's going to stop this from going further?
You're right, Autist. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of fired up about this because these people are sick. Making a martyr out of what this guy did, making martyrs out of deletion people. Oh gee whiz, I can't think of who else does that shit. I can't think of who else does, who makes martyrs out of people who self-delete themselves for the cause of Palestine. Oh, that's right. Fucking jihadis. Fucking jihadis who celebrate martyrs like George Floyd. Oh. That's not in New Jersey. That's not in Michigan. That's in fucking Gaza. There's a fucking mural to George Floyd in fucking Gaza. You think I'm fucking kidding? Fucking Palestinian martyrs like George fucking Floyd, who's celebrated in Palestine as a fucking martyr for the fucking cause. You think I'm fucking joking?
Dozens of Palestinian protesters gathered in front of the Church of Nativity in the West Bank city of Bethlehem. The protest was to show solidarity with black people in the U.S. and also to remind the world of the aggression of Israeli forces against Palestinians.
نقول لكل شعوب العالم ولكل الأحرار في العالم وخاصة للشعب الأمريكي ما حصل لديكم من قتل وتمييز عنصري لدى جورج أيضا يحصل في فلسطين ولكل شهداء فلسطين أيضا.
Protesters in Bethlehem lit candles in front of a photo of George Floyd, who was killed by a U.S. officer, and a photo of Iyad al-Hallaq, an autistic Palestinian man who was shot and killed by Israeli forces in Jerusalem.
Black lives matter! Black lives matter! Palestinians' lives matter! Palestinians' lives matter!
Let me explain something to you guys. I have a phrase that I like to use among those who know me, and I haven't talked about it on the show, so let me explain it. There's a phrase that I like to use because I think it explains things and how things work in the real fucking grown-up world. And I like to call it fishy facts. Fishy facts. What are fishy facts, you ask? He asked, what are fishy facts? Well, it comes from a thing that the marketing division of Disney did during the production for Finding Nemo. A year or two before the production of the movie, before the movie came out, the marketing team for Disney for Finding Nemo was supplanting these things called fishy facts into foods and various things that Disney owned through subsidiaries to give you a little, give your kids facts about fish. So that a year later, when Finding Nemo came out, your children were organically drawn into interest of fish, and therefore would be more likely to buy tickets to Finding Nemo, right? It's seeding the market before the product is even available. Does that make sense? Fishy facts, that's what I call it. And I'm going to posit, and I've posited for a while, and I said it back in 2020, and nobody was listening, that all of a sudden in these George Floyd rallies, there's these Palestinian flags, and from the river to the sea, and where the fuck did that come from? Where the fuck did that come from? We were fishy facted, and those people were fishy facted into the black struggle is the Palestinian struggle, and BLM equals Palestine, refugees, and blah, 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 back in 2020, and I'm telling you, this is evidence. I know that was a long diatribe, and I know I'm really fired up about this, but this is some bullshit. Corey says it's a scam. You're absolutely right, Corey. Beware of the scams.
Palestinians' lives matter. Palestinian lives matter.
اليوم جئنا لنعلن أيضا تحالف المضطهدين في العالم ضد الظلم والطغيان، ضد الإدارة الأمريكية التي تضطهد السود، وضد الاحتلال الإسرائيلي الذي يضطهد الشعب الفلسطيني.
Palestinians and many human rights organizations have condemned al-Halaq's murder and called for international probes into Israeli crimes against the Palestinians, especially extrajudicial killings.
George Floyd, famous martyr for Palestine. Look at these retards. Look at these fish concert rejects right here. I saw it, you saw it, we all saw it. Anybody who's followed Middle Eastern politics for the last 10 years saw it. All of this shit got co-opted and overtaken by leftist retard fish concert rejects like these fucking faggots who are out here chanting from the river and they don't know what fucking river and what fucking sea they're even fucking talking about.
At big pro-Palestinian rallies like this one the other day in Toronto, you'll hear it.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Some see it as a rallying cry. Others consider it a call to eliminate Israel. In Montreal, too, you could hear that phrase over the crowd of thousands.
When we say we want Palestine to be free, it's from the river to the sea.
The U.S. Anti-Defamation League labels it an anti-Semitic slogan. Canada's Federation CJA agrees.
When someone says from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, I question, where do you see the Jews going? That is hate speech, right? Because it is into the sea that they seek to send the Jews.
Some say it's more complicated.
We can't always assume the meaning of this or how a particular speaker intends it to mean.
We'll get back to that in a moment.
First, it's worth explaining that phrase refers to the land between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River, including the two present-day Palestinian territories, the Gaza Strip and the occupied West Bank. But calling for a free Palestine in that entire area is often interpreted as a wish to wipe Israel off the map.
In the 1960s, the Palestine Liberation Organization demanded the region return to an earlier era.
When they got co-opted,
extending.
When they got co-opted by, you know,
let's say China.
You know, let's say that.
From the river to the sea. The PLO later embraced a two-state solution. But then Hamas co-opted the phrase as a murderous plot against Israel. Palestine is our land and nation from sea to the river, from north to south, said this Hamas leader, and we cannot cede an inch or any part of it. In its founding platform, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party used similar wording to say quite the opposite. Between the sea and the Jordan, it read, there will only be Israeli sovereignty.
To you, what does it mean?
When we talk about from the river to the sea, we're talking about a place that we call home.
Palestinian-American writer Yusuf Munayyer uses that phrase, he says, to reflect the hope of freedom and dignity. He insists the dreams of Palestinians don't have to mean nightmares for Israelis.
From the river to the sea today, there is one state, an Israeli state, that rules over millions of people, Palestinians, who don't have equal rights, who are not free. That's what has to change. That doesn't mean that there should be any violence against Israelis.
U.S. Democratic Representative Rashida Tlaib posted, "From the river to the sea is an aspirational call for freedom, human rights, and peaceful coexistence, not death, destruction, or hate.
I'm the only Palestinian American serving in Congress, Mr. Chair, and my perspective is needed here now more than ever.
But the House voted to censure her.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
In Calgary, this activist was charged with a hate-motivated disturbance for encouraging the crowd to chant what police called an anti-Semitic phrase. In an online briefing, Toronto police announced a different approach.
I'm not going to speak generally in terms of other chants, but if we're talking about that specific one, no, it would not meet the threshold of hate propaganda.
The phrase may be considered a rebuke of Israel's policies, but is it anti-Semitic? Dov Waxman says not always. He leads UCLA's Center for Israel Studies.
It is clearly an anti-Zionist slogan. Although I don't support a one-state solution, I don't think it's inherently anti-Semitic to advocate for one.
It sounds like what you're saying is what it means largely depends on who's saying it and what they mean by it. Is that true?
Exactly. And also even where it's said and to whom it's said. So, it's one thing about chanting that in a political rally. It's another thing, going into a synagogue and yelling it.
You mean like going somewhere and yelling, fire?
Tense times, words carry weight. Meanings and feelings count. Perceptions matter. Thomas Dagle, CBC News, Toronto.
So it's all about context, right? From the river to the sea, blah, 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 blah. If it rhymes, a fucking white woman will chant it, whether they know what it means or not. But what if I told you? What if I told you that they're hiding something from you, the mainstream media? Oh, gee whiz. The same people who sold you into the Iraq war and every war. The same people who wanted you to believe that Jeffrey Epstein self-deleted himself and there's nothing to see here, folks. The same mainstream media that tells you you're crazy for noticing all of this. What if I told you that they're hiding something from you in this from the river to the sea thing? What if I told you historically that has another meaning and it's lost in translation? What if I told you they're not telling you the whole truth?
All their passion, many of the people chanting this slogan have no idea which river or sea they're talking about.
What's the river?
I forgot the river's name, but the sea is the Red Sea.
I think it's the Black Sea and the river on the other side of Gaza.
From the mountains to the sea.
From the mountains to the sea. Which mountains? What? You gotta be kidding me!
I'm not trying to make fun of anyone, but we do have to set the record straight.
I'm very much trying to make fun of them.
Because if most of these people understood exactly what they were calling for, they might not be so enthusiastic.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
What happens to Israel?
In fact, a small survey of American college students around the country revealed that most had no idea what they were saying. Nearly 70% walked back their use of the slogan when they learned what it really meant. So, what does it really mean? The answer is right here on the map. This is the river. This is the sea. This is what's in between. You see the problem? There's already a country there. And while some of the folks chanting from the river to the sea think they're calling for a binational utopia, the original Arabic slogan tells a different story. Well, 3 stories. The first part is more or less the same. Min al-nahr ila al-bahr. From the river to the sea. In some versions, it's min al-mayya ila al-mayya. from the water to the water. But things get spicy in the latter half of the slogan, because while some call for Palestine to be free, Filistin Hurriya, others call for Filistin Arabiyya, which means Palestine will be Arab, or even Filistin Muslimiyya, Palestine will be Muslim. What was that about a single democratic state for everyone?
I don't have any recollection of that at all.
No one is quite sure when From the River to the Sea gained traction among Palestinians. Some claim it came into the Palestinian mainstream in the 1960s.
When it got co-opted by,
Let's say China.
Let's say that.
Palestine Liberation Organization. Others say that it only became popular in the mid to late 1980s. But it doesn't matter when it came to be adopted, because until the 1990s, every Palestinian faction shared the same goal: the destruction of the Jewish state. Don't take my word for it. Just have a look at the PLO's 1968 charter, which calls for a holy war until complete and final victory, the complete restoration of our lost homeland. That restored homeland had no room for Jewish self-determination. The liberation of Palestine aims at the elimination of Zionism in Palestine. The demand for security and peace require all states to consider Zionism an illegitimate movement, to outlaw its existence, and to ban its operations. Once, free Palestine might have meant build a Palestinian state alongside Israel. It might even have meant build one peaceful state for everyone. But these days, From the River to the Sea is accompanied by other lovely slogans.
There is only one solution! Intifada revolution! Intifada revolution!
Ever lived through an intifada? This is what it looks like.
The second intifada caused the deaths of over 300 Israelis from sniper attacks, ambushes, and suicide bombings.
This is what protesters want to globalize and bring to the rest of the world. These are the means necessary to free Palestine from the river to the sea. This is the so-called only solution, which, by the way, carries some highly unpleasant associations for Jews. And this is why so many Jews interpret From the River to the Sea as an explicit call for our destruction.
الإجماع الفلسطيني أو شبه الإجماع الفلسطيني حقنا في فلسطين لا تراجع عنه من البحر. أظن تجدد الحلم والأمل. فلسطين من البحر إلى النهر، من الشمال إلى الجنوب. وهذا حتى كما قلت لك أصبح شعار في الولايات المتحدة وفي العواصم الغربية وعند الجمهور الغربي الأمريكي والغربي.
How much clearer do you need to be? From the river to the sea, Palestine will be Arab. Needs to be chanted in the US and Western capital cities. How do you not fucking see this? And don't get it twisted. Let me dispel one thing right off the bat. Because I've been in this argument with people just recently. But Palestine is on a map. Good spirit. Palestine's on a map. Case closed. It was Palestine all along. That's literally the same fucking logic that people use to say that Tartaria, a fucking magical empire, existed with fucking Nikola Tesla fucking free energy fucking beams fucking existed because it's on a map, bro. Mud flood. Look into it, bro. Excuse me. Have you looked into it? Tartaria is on a map, bro. I think somebody doesn't believe in mud floods. Like, that's literally the same fucking argument that people use to say that Palestine was a fucking state. So don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. Nevertheless, I completely understand why some people, myself included, have criticisms of Israel, and I understand why you might be upset at Israel, and I understand why you might have legitimate criticisms of Israel and what Israel does. I'm not delegitimizing those concerns. I'm saying don't fall for it. Don't be a light switch brain. Don't go from on to off. Don't just say positive or negative, one or the other. Don't say I'm anti-Israel, therefore Palestinians, bro, because of magical fucking Tartaria fucking countries that never existed. But I understand why you might have legitimate concerns about Israel, and I understand why things might be a little bit hairy right now. I'm not defending Israel or its actions. Back to the news. What's going on in Israel again? Because, oh man. Conflicting reports, you say? Oh, gee whiz. Who would have guessed? That's kind of my point, but I digress.
Health officials in Gaza say more than 100 people have been killed after Israeli soldiers opened fire near a crowd waiting for humanitarian aid delivery in Gaza City. Hamas, widely designated as a terrorist group, runs the Gaza Health Ministry, and Hamas officials there say more than 700 others were injured in the incident. Israeli officials say most of those killed died in a crush to get aid. But they have also acknowledged that as the aid convoy moved further north, troops fired warning shots, including at people's legs, believing that the crowd gathered around the convoy posed a threat. Here's more from an Israeli government spokesperson on the incident.
My understanding thus far is that humanitarian aid vehicles entered the Gaza Strip and were overwhelmed by people attempting to essentially loot, to take that aid from those aid trucks. And at some point, and you can surely see this in some of the videos that the IDF have distributed, at some point, the trucks were overwhelmed, and the people driving the trucks, which are Gazan civilian drivers, plowed into the crowds of people.
Let's get across to DW's Tanya Kramer in Jerusalem. Tanya, at this point, we have conflicting reports about what has happened. So let's be clear about what we do and don't know at this point. Can you tell us, first of all, what we can say for sure?
Well, I mean, as you said, there are conflicting reports, and there were devastating scenes being described by eyewitness to wire services there. So what we know is that this aid convoy moved from the convoy of trucks moved from the south of the Gaza Strip to the northern Gaza Strip. We understand it passed a checkpoint there on the way, and then what eyewitnesses are saying is that once the aid convoy was moving there, the trucks arrived on the other side, that a lot of people went there, obviously, and that there were shots fired from the Israeli military that caused people to panic, also the drivers to panic, and then to turn around and also run people over, causing a stampede, so to speak. This is what eyewitnesses have said, and that what caused the casualties that have been reported by the Ministry of Health there in Gaza. Now,
really difficult to understand exactly what happened here. What's your sense of what took place?
I mean, the fact that you have people who are swarming like fucking cockroaches. Go back to that. Like fucking cockroaches. You're telling me that they were looting and overwhelming aid convoys? Oh, gee whiz. All of this is fucking unreal and surreal, and you shouldn't believe anybody in this. That's my point.
Difficult to understand exactly what happened here. What's your sense of what took place?
Well, exactly as you said, it's very difficult to do analysis without. There's clearly quite a murky situation going on the ground here, so we've got to be really careful not to jump to conclusions about this. It appears that in northern Gaza, reports of 104 people killed, 280 wounded. It appears that a civil aid agency was trying to take aid and medicines and food and to west of Gaza City, and there's been some confusion about western Gaza City or down at Rafah. Now, the Palestinians claim that the Palestinians claim they were fired upon by the IDF, and that's how there's three different explanations we're hearing from the IDF so far. Initially, it was that there was a stampede that caused loads of people to die. Then there was a suggestion that a truck had actually, driven by a civilian driver, had mown down a load of the Palestinians. Then there was a suggestion that this was potentially Hamas stealing the aid. What we do know is that it's clearly aid distribution is very, very difficult, and the role of the military normally is to create a security environment to make sure it can't be looted and to make sure the aid gets those who need it most, because often, tragically, those who are fit enough to loot are not the ones that the aid should be getting to. It should be getting to the sick, wounded, and people who can't get to the aid trucks. So it's not entirely clear how this actually manifested itself.
And with the military being there during aid's delivery, what's their role?
Well, normally it provides security, so they control the distribution of aid. And the first action when these things get out of control is that often they'll fire overhead, that sort of thing. We've seen already down in Rafah, we've seen regularly the aid trucks, people descending on them, starting to loot them. Now, it's worth putting in context, though. The Israelis are always talking about potentially northern Gaza, where the fighting should have been finished. The IDF have suffered a series of casualties up there, with Hamas doing surprise attacks, probably coming out of the tunnel network. So you can imagine that actually the IDF will be pretty nervous there. Then you've got these big crowds suddenly massing around, and from an IDF perspective, who are the military, who are the civilians, where are the Hamas fighters in there? And then you've potentially got quite a lot of recently mobilised Israeli Defence Force people. This is a really, really difficult, dangerous environment for them to operate in. But I have to stress at the moment, there are so many questions, so many things we can't make sense of. We'll have, Sky need to verify this stuff, and then we can provide a better assessment.
Absolutely. All right, John, do appreciate that initial assessment for now. Thank you very much.
So, look. Don't jump to conclusions about anything, because I'm saying when you've got people who are swarming like fucking insects. Yeah, no fucking shit, there's looting. Yeah, no fucking shit that the IDF is a little hairy because they've suffered casualties in that area. Like, this is all a fucking mess. And there's no good guys. But lest you think that I'm like defending Israel on all of this, I'm just saying you shouldn't trust anybody, because there's a reason that I don't trust the poor Palestinian narrative. And there's a reason that you shouldn't trust the poor Palestinian narrative. You can have your legitimate criticisms of Israel. Well taken, sir. But don't fall for it. Don't fall for this bullshit of... Well, the Palestinians are the real Christians or something or other, man. And there's no evidence for, like, the Jews and fucking... I don't care. I don't care. My assessment of the Middle East has goddamn nothing to do with whose granddaddy pissed in whose bush. I don't fucking care. I don't fucking care about archaeological evidence for ancient Israel. I don't fucking care. My assessment of the Middle East has 0% to do with any kind of biblical, religious, fucking archaeological, fucking my grandpa pissed on this bush on this hill nonsense. I don't fucking care. My assessment has to do with who owns that fucking land right fucking now. Whether you think it's legitimate or not, I don't fucking care. My assessment has to do with this. You shouldn't trust the Palestinians because you hate the Israelis because of this. What do we say? What do we say on this show?
And don't trust China. China is asshole.
Then apparently I need to go through a brief reminder in case some of you don't remember that these brave Palestinian fighters, get it out of your head that this is some kind of territorial dispute. Get it out of your noggin that this is some kind of religious dispute. That's all I hear. That's all I hear is Jews versus Muslims, Israelis versus Palestinians. Get that out of your fucking skull. It's never been about that. It's never fucking been about that since at least the 1960s because, oh, what are these brave Palestinian resistance fighters reading? I know. I'm as shocked as you are that they can read. There's mostly pictures in the book, to be fair. And they're of Chairman fucking Mao. In case you haven't seen the stream that I did already on this, let me give you a quick refresher. Relations between the People's Republic of China and the Palestinian guerrilla organizations has always been close, and the chairman of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, Yasser Arafat, once was quoted by the Peking Review describing the People's Republic of China as being, quote, the biggest influence in supporting our revolution and strengthening its perseverance. His organization, Fatah, is on record as having said that the Chinese people's support of the revolutionary cause of Palestine is an important pillar of the Palestinian revolution. More radical Palestinian organizations such as Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, who blew up airplanes, have sometimes been even more direct. PFLP leader George Hasbara, sorry, I got ahead of myself. George Habash declared in 1970, quote, our best friend is China. China wants Israel erased from the map. China wants Israel erased from the map because as long as Israel exists, there will remain an aggressive imperialist outpost on Arab soil. For various reasons, both China and Palestinians have usually not emphasized the closeness of their relationship, and the extent of Chinese involvement in the Palestinian remain hazy to outside observers, but this involvement is clearly one of the most ignored facets of the Middle East political situation. China officially recognized Palestine as a state in 1988 and was the first non-Arab state to forge relations with Palestine back in 1965 when the Palestinian Liberation Organization representatives visited Beijing. During that meeting, Mao Zedong compared Israel to Taiwan. Mao Zedong compared Israel to Taiwan. I know I've already said this. I've gone over this. This is unfucking real that people don't recognize this. Saying that the two were created by imperialism to keep the Arabs and the Chinese in check. Israel had been created by American imperialists and was a threat to its neighboring Arab states, and China was the main supplier of arms to the Palestinians at the time, sending around $5 million in military and financial aid between the late 1960s and mid-1970s. You complain about all of the aid that's going to Israel. China sending aid to the Palestinians back in 1960s and 70s. And by 1970, PLO chair Yasser Arafat said that the PRC was the country which has the greatest influence and support of our revolution in the firming up of its purpose. And if you think it ends there, no! During the era of Mao Zedong, China's foreign policy was in support of third world national liberation movements, and China extending support towards Palestine. In this period, China supported both Fatah and smaller militant organizations such as the PFLP and the DFLP. In the post-Mao era, China continued to support the PLO. And though it dropped its support for militant organizations, China recognized the state of Palestine in 1988. And since 1992, China has also established formal diplomatic relations with Israel, and it has also maintained a cordial relationship with both entities, playing both sides. While Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat and Mahmoud Abbas both visited China in official capacities, and relations between the two countries has been considered cordial, China does not consider Hamas ruling the Gaza Strip as a terrorist organization and officially supports the creation of a sovereign Palestinian state. That will never be a Maoist proxy for China, right? Because during the 1960s, Mao Zedong strongly supported the destruction of Israel and the replacement with a Palestinian Arab state, and Mao Zedong linked the existence of Israel to Taiwan, describing them as bases of imperialism. In 1975, China was supporting a resolution at the UN that equated Zionism with racism. And even after the PLO, China had friendly diplomatic relations with Hamas and refused to call the group a terrorist organization, instead called them elected representatives of the Palestinian people. That's a terrible injustice. Ching-chong, bing-bong. Meanwhile, Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinians, is going over to China and getting paid under the table in fucking weapons and support to just ignore and turn his head to the extermination of the Uyghur Muslims. Just look the other way. Don't pay attention to that shit. We'll pay for all of your arms and all of your support for your fight against Israel and all of the support for a Palestine state. Gee, I wonder why China would benefit from the Palestinians. They want Israel erased from the map. Are you hearing this? This is just a week ago. What is China saying? Ching chong big bong! Palestinians have the right to kill Jews. Because oppression of Palestinian people. revolution is only solution. Where does that? Gee, where have I fucking heard that before? Where have I heard that fucking chant before? China. Ugh.
Palestinian people use force to resist foreign oppression and complete the establishment of an independent state is inalienable right, well founded in international law.
On the fourth day of the hearing of a case questioning Israel's decades-long occupation of Palestinian territories at the International Court of Justice, China, much like the rest of the dozens of countries presenting their argument at The Hague, criticized Tel Aviv for deliberately preventing Palestinian self-determination. However, it went one step ahead when it explicitly, in no unclear terms, defended the right of Palestinians to achieve self-determination, even through an armed struggle.
In pursuit of the right to self-determination, Palestinian people use force to resist foreign oppression and complete the establishment of an independent state is inalienable right, well founded in international law. Various people freed themselves from colonial rule and foreign oppression to realize independent statehood after World War II. Their practices serve as convincing evidence for the right.
And the Chinese representative backed his arguments not with rhetoric, but by citing and quoting international conventions that protect this right.
Armed struggle, in this context, is distinguished from acts of terrorism. It is grounded in the international law. This distinction is acknowledged by several international conventions. For example, Article 3 of the OAU Convention on the Prevention and Combating the Terrorism of 1999 provides that, I quote, "The struggle waged by peoples in accordance with the principle of international law for their liberation of self-determination, including armed struggle, against colonialism, occupation, aggression, and domination by foreign forces, shall not be considered as terrorist acts."
However, Beijing stressed that genuine acts of terrorism are another matter.
There it is. There it is. There it is. Colonialism and occupation. It's all fucking leftist buzzwords, and gee, where is it coming from?
Let's say China. 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 You go over to China. 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 You take China. 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 I love them. China. China. China, China, China. I have to have my China. China, China, because China, 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 China now, China, China. You know, China. I know China very well. China, 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 China.
Northwest Wisconsin, where I'm from.
It's China to me, China. China, 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 China. You want to buy from China? That's great. Buy from China. Buy toys from China. China in particular. China. China. I have people that I know in China. 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 China, 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 China. I've been saying China, 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 China.
China. I'm sorry. I've been off smoking reefer with ham in space. What were we talking about? Oh, that's right, China. Don't believe them. Don't believe them because they want you, and by they, I mean the media. I don't believe anything that the media is pushing, and the media right now, whether you like Israel or not, put aside all of the things that you think you know or you feel about Israel. I don't fucking care. Use your common sense. When has the mainstream media ever told you the truth? When has the mainstream media ever told you the truth? I don't care what you think about Israel. When has the mainstream media ever told you the truth? And the mainstream media right now, really wants you to have this image burned into your brain. They really want to have this image burned into your brain, and they really want you to think that this is the most gratuitous human rights violation in all of the world. They really want this image burned into your brain, but they really don't want this image burned into your brain. No, they don't want to talk about this. They don't want to talk about the genocide of Uyghurs. They don't want to talk about anything that somebody else is doing. No, Israel, Palestine, Gaza is the biggest humanitarian crisis in all of the world, and you need to focus on that. They don't want you to focus on something else, and I haven't been focusing. D-Rec bought a Xanax and said, money, Moose 7. Thank you very much, D-Rec. It's appreciated. I got it. Thank you very much. And you can be a G like D-Rec and go to buymeacoffee.com/mooseheaven because D-Rec reminds us all.
And don't trust China. China is asshole.
Don't trust them. They really want you focused on one genocide and not another. That's weird. That's weird.
Weird.
Weird. Let's talk about something else. Controversial subject. Anytime I see Snopes rushing to debunk something, I know there's something else behind it. Let's talk about Pallywood. Because you have criticism of Israel doesn't mean you should automatically support Palestinians. What if both are lying to you? Pallywood. I want to investigate something for a moment with an open mind and open judgment. You be the judge.
قدامه الحين طلعنا من بطن هذا من الجنين طلع على جنين طبعا كذا دكتور ايش قديش عمر الطفل؟
هذا جنين في بطن امه عمره 8 شهور او 7 شهور. حاولنا انقاذ الطفل ولكن يعني ما قدرنا نلحق الطفل، الام استشهدت. وحاولنا ان نلحق الطفل، في البدايه كان في نبض بسيط ولكن ربنا اخذ امانته وما قدرنا نلحق الطفل. الام عايشه ولا؟ الام متوفيه، اجت مستشهده وحاول الطفل ولكن ما في. والاب كمان. والاب مستشهد والعيله كلها.
Oh, wow, that's weird. Because, okay, so what this purports to be... Look, I'm not even saying this. This is what they're saying. You be the judge. I'm not making any claims. You be the judge. They're saying, they're telling you that is a 7-month-year-old baby that was cut from the womb of a mother that died in an Israeli bomb. I'm not saying you should take any side. I'm saying if you have legitimate criticisms of Israel, fine. That's cool. But you're telling me that this is a 7-month-year-old baby that they cut from the womb of a dead woman who was killed by bombs? First of all, look, I don't usually get into this kind of stuff on this stream. I don't usually get into this kind of stuff regardless, but that's way too big for a 7-month-year-old baby. I don't believe it. I don't believe anybody. Look, if you think I'm taking sides, I don't believe anybody. Even if they're telling the truth, they cut that fucking 7-month-year-old from the fucking dead woman's womb, and then paraded it in front of cameras for propaganda purposes because to own the fucking Jews. I don't fucking care. I don't fucking care what you think of Israel. I don't care what you think of the atrocities, the legitimate atrocities of Israel. This is some sick and twisted shit. Even if they're telling the truth. Even if they're telling the truth about this, they're parading around a stillborn fucking fetus, a fucking premature fetus that they rip from the womb of a dead Palestinian for fucking propaganda purposes to push what? To push what? A Palestinian state that's a proxy for China. So what? You got legitimate criticisms of Israel. Cool. We've all got legitimate criticisms of Israel. But does that automatically mean you need to support these people who fucking lie to you just as much as fucking Israelis? You think they don't lie to you too? Let me introduce you to Pallywood, in case you don't know about it, because Snopes is really eager to debunk this shit, and every time they debunk it, it's the typical fucking shit that Snopes debunks, and every time there's some extra story that they're not telling you about. Oh, these fucking things are from movies and video games. Yeah, that's not what they're fucking talking about, bro. That's not what they're fucking talking about. But 98% of what you're gonna Google is about that fucking shit. And I don't care about that. I care about this. Yeah, I obviously care, because look at this shit. You're gonna tell me you believe Palestinians after this?
There are not many film productions in the Gaza Strip, but that didn't stop makeup artist Mariam Salah from following her dream. She taught herself to make fake blood for Palestinian films, breaking into a business traditionally run by men.
We're on a film set in the Gaza Strip. Makeup artist Mariam Salah is creating horrific-looking injuries on actors taking part in a project by French charity Doctors of the World. They hope to raise awareness of the dangers faced by Gaza residents. Salah creates her special effects in 2 to 20 minutes, depending on their size and complexity. But the young artist received no education to develop these skills.
In the beginning, I learned by watching horror movies. I was able to figure out simple effects
just by looking at the piece. However, as I got older, I learned more advanced effects through the internet by watching YouTube and other Western websites.
But there are not many platforms in Gaza for artists like herself to show off their skills.
We don't have a cinema here in Gaza. This is the main hardship I face in this domain, which prevents and limits me from working in my field. As a result, I only show my work on Facebook, or the social network Instagram, or some of the very simple documentaries.
Makeup artists in Gaza tend to be men, but Salah has changed that.
Mariam has a lot of strength to enter this domain. And as you know, in this domain, most of the injuries and work revolve around men. But Mariam has determination to continue and reach the international level.
She hopes to work for Hollywood and Bollywood productions one day. And she's striving towards that, one devastating injury at a time.
Totally not profiting off of genocide, right? Look, if you think I'm taking sides in this, I'm not. I don't believe anybody, and I'm saying you shouldn't either. Do you find all of this confusing? I saw a lot of people finding the sites of this very confusing.
Come here! I'll show you what danger is! Come here! Come here, I'll show you what danger is! I'm from this country! You are a rapist! You are a murderist! You're supported by terrorists! Being raped! Being brutally raped right now!
Be ashamed of yourself! Disgusting creatures! Khalil Hashem!
So why are all of these Orthodox Jews waving Palestinian flags? It's weird to me. Same people who say satanic Talmudic Jews. These are your Talmudic Jews. Do you know what's in the Talmud? This.
Palestinian Jews. That is what members of the Neturei Karta group are calling themselves. The extreme anti-Zionist ultra-Orthodox sect made a visit to the refugee camp in Jenin, a Palestinian city in the northern West Bank. The camp is seen by the Israelis as a hotbed of Palestinian terrorism. Hebrew and Arabic reports say that the group met with prominent Palestinian Islamic Jihad officials as well as families of terrorist attackers, which spurred comments from the new Israeli government, such as this one from National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. Neturei Karta opposes the modern state of Israel on religious grounds. They regularly protest against the Jewish state and have met with Holocaust deniers as well as leaders of the Iranian regime and the Hamas terror organization in the Gaza Strip. The group said their visit was to stand in solidarity with the Palestinians against the Israelis. Israel's Channel 12 News reported that although local gunmen tried to harm the delegation, they were prevented from doing so.
Oh, so you think, okay, base Jews, the Neturei Karta, they don't support Zionism in Israel. What if I told you there's a dark side to that sect of Judaism that they're not telling you about? Remember, if the mainstream media is pushing it to you, they're lying to you. They're hiding something from you. You think I'm taking sides? You think I'm pro-Talmudic Jew? This is your Talmudic Jews right here. The Neturei Karta. Let's learn more about why these ultra-Orthodox Jews are out in support of Palestine. The real reason.
Through the 1950s, the Neturei Karta tried repeatedly to make friendly contact with Israel's Arab neighbors. They finally succeeded in 1980 when Weiss Fischer's successor, Moshe Hirsch, befriended PLO chairman Yasser Arafat. At the time, Yasser Arafat was public enemy number one. Under his leadership, the PLO orchestrated some of the most devastating attacks in Israel's history. Massacres of high schoolers and tourists and Olympic athletes, hijackings of buses and planes and cruise ships, the bombing of civilian targets. But Hirsch and the Neturei Karta more broadly saw real value in these repulsive photo ops with the PLO chairman. For one, their meetings made headlines, broadcasting the Neturei Karta's message to the world. But perhaps more importantly, Hirsch presented his cozy relationship with Arafat as proof that Jews could live and worship safely under Arab rule, negating their need for a sovereign state. This is the same twisted logic that powers the Neturei Karta's friendship with former Iranian President Ahmadinejad, with Hezbollah, with Hamas, and it's exactly why the Neturei Karta's ideology is so toxic. The Neturei Karta weaponized their Judaism. Their appearance is their currency, and they wield it cleverly to present themselves as the real spokesman of the Jewish people. And yet, the wider Jewish community understands that the Neturei Karta are nothing more than tokens, the pet Jews of enemy powers. Make no mistake, the groups that the Neturei Karta cozy up to are explicitly anti-Semitic. Their bombs and rockets and rhetoric do not differentiate between Zionists and anti-Zionists, but the Neturei Karta provide them with convenient cover, allowing the avowed enemies of the Jewish people to say, I'm an anti-Zionist, not an anti-Semite. It's a toxic and transparent tactic. But it works, because if you didn't know anything about Judaism, and let's face it, most of the world doesn't, the Neturei Karta certainly look the part. You'd come away thinking that they represented the world's Jews, when they do nothing of the sort. They're selling out the Jewish people by lending a Jewish seal of approval to the vilest ideas, all while insisting that they're not a violent group, that they're working towards the peaceful dismantling of the Jewish state. It's a brilliant bit of trickery, because the Neturei Karta don't need to call for violence. Their allies in Iran and Lebanon and Gaza are more than committed to doing their dirty work for them. So the next time someone trots out the Neturei Karta as evidence that Jews oppose Zionism, you'll know the truth.
So, trickery. Trickery is afoot. Oh, does that surprise you that trickery would be afoot? Let me explain it in a more direct way than this guy did. Because all of these people saying blah, 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 satanic, Talmudic, Jewish, blah, 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 blah. Do you know what the Talmud says? Do you know what you know what Talmudic Jews believe? These Talmudic Jews, do you know what the Neturei Karta believe? Do you know what the Talmud says in their interpretation? That Israel shouldn't exist, and that the Jews should be the tokens, the heels, the oppressed people of the world. They're happy to kill as many Jews, Zionist or non-Zionist, regardless, religious, non-religious, they don't fucking care, because in their fucking weird Talmudic religious belief, as many Jews have to be killed as possible, because the Jews have to be under the heel of the fucking world and have no fucking homeland, and therefore be under the rule of the Arabs to achieve the Moshiach. Like, that's what the fucking Talmud says, that Israel shouldn't fucking exist. So the same fucking people who are like, satanic fucking Talmudic Jews, the fucking Talmud says that if you believe these fucking people, and you shouldn't befriend these people. Look, if you have legitimate concerns about Israel, go for it. Go fucking for it. I have legitimate concerns about Israel. But these people have their own fucking sector in Israel, and they're a problem even in Israel. Imagine, if you will, a place in Israel where this is normal every day. You have fucking Orthodox Jews waving Palestinian flags calling Israelis Nazis. Hello? Hello? Do you think I'm taking sides here? This is more complicated than you think. You think that all ultra-Orthodox religious Jews support Israel? You think that Talmudic following Jews support the state of Israel and are Zionist? Think again. Think of fucking again. You clearly don't know enough about Israel and about Jews. There's an old saying with Jews. 2 Jews, 3 opinions. And that's how we roll here on Moose Heaven. We don't have an opinion about things.
They want us to go to the Israeli army. For that it means to us, they don't want us to be religious. Therefore, we prefer to die and not to go to the army.
This is right now. This is happening right now in Israel. This is happening right now. It's more complicated than you think. Jews are not a monolith. 2 Jews, 3 opinions. How ultra-Orthodox do you have to be to attain ultra-Orthodox status? That's a good question. When that's a good segue. So, these people that we're talking about, Neturei Karta, the anti-Zionist, pro-Palestinian Orthodox Jews that you see everywhere, which should automatically raise your suspicions that there's something not right when they're everywhere protesting against Israel. Hello? You don't trust Jews? The Talmudic Jews are the ones who are against Israel. Hello? And they have their own community in Israel that's anti-Israel, that hates Jews because they want Jews to be under the boot of the world. You have to understand there's not Jews, there's lots of Jews. 2 Jews, 3 opinions. And these Jews, the Neturei Karta, have their own district in Israel. And they're called the Mafia of Mesharit.
A stone's throw from the old city of Jerusalem, Mea Shearim, a Jewish quarter like no other.
אין פה אף אחד ציוני. מה זאת אומרת? אנחנו נגד הציוני.
אנחנו בגלות, ותמיד חיינו פה בגלות. אנחנו פעם זה היה טורקים, פעם היה ערבים, פעם היה אנגלים. היום זה הציונים. אבל אנחנו לא משלימים את זה, אנחנו הולכים עם הדרך שלנו, מה שכתוב בתורה. יש לנו דור עד משה רבנו, ואנחנו מתנהגים אותו דבר. אין דבר, ספר תורה נשאר אותו דבר, המנהגים נשארו אותו דבר, הכל נשאר אותו דבר, ואנחנו לא נשתנה, אפילו שהמדינה תרצה, ולא יעזור להם.
The quarter was established in 1874. It's one of the first 5 Jewish neighborhoods built outside the walls of the old city. If the different communities that live there today do not constitute a homogeneous whole, for the Haredim, or God-fearing in Hebrew, only the Messiah has the right to recreate the kingdom of Israel.
אנחנו צריכים את המשיח ואנחנו לא צריכים אף אחד. והוא יגיע. אפילו שלא מאמינים, אבל הוא יגיע.
In the meantime, the walls of Mea Shearim are covered with very questionable messages.
We constantly spread the message that the Zionists are just like the Nazis.
בדיוק כמו הנאצים. למה?
Why? What did the Nazis do? They wanted to end Judaism and the Jews, so they killed them one after the other. And Zionists, it's the same thing. They want to end Judaism. They do not kill anyone, but they use spirituality to do it.
So, you are not a Zionist?
I am not a Zionist at all. Really, I'm not.
In the neighborhood, some even go so far as to proudly display their support for the Palestinians. This is particularly in the case of the sectarian organization Neturei Karta, the Guardians of the City in Aramaic, an ultra-Orthodox community created in 1935 by the grandfather of Mayor Rabbi Hirsch.
We do not recognize the Zionist entity nor its occupation. We think this is unfair and dishonest. The Zionists took over this land by force and in blood. We believe this state must cease to exist one way or another. All those who do not follow the way of Torah eventually disappeared. And this is what will happen to the Zionist state soon.
For more than 50...
So, in other words, the Talmud and the Torah, according to these people, is anti-Zionist. The state of Israel shouldn't exist. You're saying these satanic, Talmudic Jews, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. You gotta understand, these people all hate each other. They kill each other. They assassinate each other. They all have different ideas about how things should be, how things should be done, how things should operate. But I'm saying that the Neturei Karta are not your fucking friends just because they're anti-Israel and you have legitimate complaints about Israel.
Years, the Neturei Karta have demonstrated alongside Arabs in Palestinian territories. Last January, Mayor Hirsch sent 3 of his disciples to Jenin to support former prisoners accused of terrorism by Israel.
We are taking an integral part in this conflict. We want to live in peace. We stand in solidarity with the Palestinians and their pain. That is what we wanted to show.
A visit that did not fail to make people react, especially the religious Ben-Gvir, new national security minister.
I congratulate the Israeli police after the arrest of a terrorist supporter who visited terrorists in Jenin. We will not allow any support for terrorism in any form, regardless of who it is.
But after a few days of detention, all were released by the Israeli police. Like their rabbi, a close friend of the former president of the Palestinian Authority, Yasser Arafat, the faithful of the Neturei Karta have chosen their side.
We are traitors to the Zionists. We really are. We do not hide what we think and our view of things. There are 70,000 families who find themselves in our ideology and in our way of doing things, and who are therefore anti-Zionists, and who in no way benefit from state budgets, who are obviously not used in the army either, and who have no connection or contact with the Zionist entity.
A number impossible to verify. But on the streets of Mea Shearim, the only ones who seem to oppose this ideology are the shopkeepers, who have business in the neighborhood, but don't live there.
משוגעים אחי, צריך לאשפז אותם. הכנה למוח אין להם. בן אדם לא נורמלי, מה?
אבל הביזנס הוא טוב לפחות פה?
ברוך השם, כן.
Nearly 75 years after the creation of the State of Israel, Mea Shearim is still a world apart, where people prefer to perpetuate an ancient way of life, dictated solely by the precepts of the Torah, as they see it.
So there is your ultra-Orthodox following the Talmud and what do they have in their community? Modesty signs. I notice how when I'm criticizing Jews, all of a sudden nobody has anything to say. Weird.
Weird.
Yeah. Because if you think I'm taking sides, and if you think that satanic Talmud, blah, 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 you need to rethink this because you clearly don't know enough. These are your Talmudic Jews. They're anti-Zionist. They've got signs in their community for modesty. Modest clothes. Oh, man. My favorite story about this is how a mob of Orthodox Jews overran an ice cream parlor because men and women were allowed to sit together, and not only that, because they found that licking ice cream cones was immodest. And so for that, they burnt down the fucking ice cream parlor in Israel. Like, understand that there is not the Jews. Understand that within Israel, there are Jews that fucking hate Israel. And not only that, they fucking hate Jews. They want to be the heel of the world because religiously they believe under the Talmud that the Jews should not have no homeland. They should be the boot heel, crushed under the boot heel of every other race and have no homeland, be the oppressed people, and that will bring the Moshiach. That's your Talmudic Jews. They fucking hate Israel, and they fucking hate Zionism, and they fucking hate Jews. And so therefore, they ally with anybody who hates Israel. I'm saying there's no good guys in this. You shouldn't pick any fucking side in this. Because if you think the fucking ultra-Orthodox who are anti-Zionists or based or whatever, think of fucking again.
We're in Mea Shearim, an ultra-Orthodox Jewish neighbourhood in Jerusalem, where a computer store is literally under siege from religious extremists. These protesters are on the hunt for the MP4 device that downloads video and is forbidden by the ultra-Orthodox, but it's a pretext, some say, for much more.
These are extremists. They are trying to take control of all the area of Mea Shearim.
The men refuse to say who they are, but their clothes indicate that they're members of the Satmar community, an ultra-Orthodox Hasidic movement.
I'm not speaking to you, not to TV, not to the press.
One of the store's salesmen confronts the protesters, a brave move, since often such incidents turn nasty. As was the case one night several weeks ago. Mea Shearim is another world where rabbis regularly post lists of what's prohibited. the battle against secular influences has become violent at times, with modesty patrols taking to the streets. 2 months ago, one such patrol turned up at this young woman's home.
With no warning, one man threw me to the ground. Then another arrived, and then the two of them jumped on me. One sat on my back, and then they began beating me violently.
She left the ultra-Orthodox world 3 years ago after divorcing her husband and was forced to leave her 3 children behind.
I'd heard people talking about these patrols, rumours as such. I heard that it might have happened to somebody, but I never imagined that they'd turn up at my door.
Rabbi Henri Kahn, who works in Mea Shearim, talks openly about the existence of modesty patrols.
In a neighborhood where 99% of people are Orthodox, I believe it's natural for people to say to those who are breaking the rules, just go away. Now, if that person doesn't understand, then force might be used.
Back at the computer store, the protesters are still there, but one finally explains why they come back here every day.
We're Orthodox Jews and we're trying to enforce the will of God.
A servant of God, or perhaps a custodian who protects the purity of Mea Shearim.
So, hello. Understand, even within Israel, it's not the Jews. I get that people who don't know anything about Israel and don't know anything about the Jews can see it that way. And I want to talk about something else. I can understand, and I forgive on some level, how in our lifetime, us, and look, I'm saying this is a cautionary tale. Don't fall into your parents' trap. Don't become like the boomers. Don't be a boomer. Everybody said, oh, those fucking boomers with their inflexible, outdated foreign policies that no longer exist anymore in the Cold War. Right? Well, that's what you're all fucking in danger of becoming when you hold on to outdated neocon, bending over backwards for Israel policies, because let me fucking tell you, bitter pill to swallow. And this is not supporting Israel. It's not supporting Palestinians. It's not supporting anybody. It's just telling you the fucking harsh truth that guess what? It's not 2004 anymore. The neocons aren't in charge anymore. The government isn't exactly bending over backwards for Israel. Yes, they send them foreign aid. Yes, the Jewish lobby is very, 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 very powerful. But not the same as it was 20 years ago. Don't fucking fall into the same trap your parents fell into. Hello? Are you watching the news? The government is not exactly bending over backwards for Israel.
And we do have breaking news to bring you. President Biden has released an executive order now targeting Jewish settlers in the West Bank who've been attacking Palestinians in the occupied territory.
The Biden administration is imposing sanctions on individuals who have engaged in such violence. The president has faced criticism for being too deferential to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in his war with Hamas. Critics say Israel's ongoing military campaign is a disproportionate response to the October 7th attacks. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us now from outside of the White House there. So Ed, what more can you tell us about this executive order and is this actually a shift for the Biden administration?
Not necessarily a shift for the Biden administration, but if anything, a shift back to what had been about 40, almost 50 years of general U.S. policy when it comes to these kinds of settlements. This executive order out this hour, in essence, clarifies U.S. policy.
What he said is exactly right. What he said just now is exactly right. It's just a shift back to 40 or 50 years ago.
In essence, clarifies U.S. policy and allows the United States to target anyone in the West Bank, be they Jewish settlers, Palestinians, or other non-Americans who may end up causing violence or the displacement of people there in the West Bank. And like I said, reaffirms roughly 40 years of U.S. policy that is in line with international law that considers these settlements to be illegal, given how the West Bank was established and for whom originally back in the day. It puts the Biden administration, though, at odds with Benjamin Netanyahu's conservative coalition government there in Israel. There are a handful of cabinet ministers, in fact, who are West Bank settlers, and his government has seen them as sacrosanct to the future of Israel and has no issue with them being there, have been quite supportive of them. But the general consensus of those that support the idea of a two-state solution is you can't have almost 700,000 settlers living in the West Bank that way if you're ever going to have a two-state solution that involves the West Bank, Gaza, and Israel. So, in essence, a way to demonstrate some distance between the Biden administration and the current Israeli government at a time of international and domestic political calls for some separation, if not more criticism, of the Israeli government and its continued war against Hamas, which of course has resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands of civilians.
And meanwhile, Ed, we know the president is heading to what the White House is describing as a political event over in Detroit with the United Auto Workers. What can you tell us about that?
I understand this is not important. That part is not important. The important part is I understand and I forgive you for thinking blah, 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 blah. U.S. foreign policy bends over backwards for Israel because I get it, bro. I'm 42 years old. I grew up in the post 9/11 era. I grew up with this guy we're looking at right now, swinging a fucking curtain rod, pretending to be Darth Maul. So I get it. I get it that your vision of Joe Biden is this guy. This guy who was, I'm gonna go back in time. We're gonna go back in time in the internet, back in time fucking Moose Heaven machine. Powered by pure grain alcohol, Adderall, and caffeine. We're gonna go back in time and let the Star Wars kid tell us about geopolitics and where then Vice President Joe Biden stood on Israel. I get it. This is your image of Joe Biden once upon a time.
While Senator Joe Biden has only just been chosen as the Democratic vice presidential nominee, Shalom TV met the senator and discussed his views on issues important to the Jewish nation.
Following months of speculation, Democratic presidential nominee Barack Obama has selected Delaware Senator Joe Biden as his running mate. As the number 2 man on the traditionally Jewish-supported Democratic ticket, many Jews are questioning what the Delaware senator's views on issues important to American Jews are.
There is this inextricable tie between culture, religion, ethnicity that most people don't fully understand. That is unique and how can I say it? So strong with Jews worldwide. There is a, I mean, you know, I used to say early on when I was a kid, I'd say, when I was a young senator, I'd say, if I were a Jew, I'd be a Zionist. I am a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
While some American progressives and liberals have claimed Israel...
You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist, says our current sitting president. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
I mean, you know, I used to say early on when I was a kid, I'd say, when I was a young senator, I'd say, if I were a Jew, I'd be a Zionist. I am a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
While some American progressives and liberals have claimed Israel is the cause or at least the beneficiary of the current Iraq war, Biden takes a different view.
When the Baker Commission filed its report saying...
Look, this is about Jonathan Pollard, which is a fucking fascinating topic that we'd have to get into on another night. It's a fucking deep dive. But let me reiterate that I understand and I sympathize and I forgive you. If your perception of the world and of U.S. foreign policy is that Israel fucks us up the ass and we do whatever we can for Israel and we bend over backwards for Israel, because I get it that 20 years ago you saw shit like this from our current sitting president.
Senator.
When no one in the United States Senate has been a better friend to Israel than Joe Biden, I would have never, ever joined this ticket were I not absolutely sure Barack Obama shared my passion. But you asked the question about whether or not this administration's policy had made sense or something to that effect. It has been an abject failure, this administration's policy. In fairness to Secretary Rice, she's trying to turn it around now in the 7th or 8th year. Here's what the president said when we said no. He insisted on elections on the West Bank when I said and others said and Barack Obama said, big mistake. Hamas will win, you legitimize them. What happened? Hamas won. When we kicked, along with France, we kicked Hezbollah out of Lebanon, I said and Barack said, move NATO forces in there, fill the vacuum, because if you don't, Hezbollah will control it. Now what's happened? Hezbollah is a legitimate part of the government in the country immediately to the north of Israel. The fact of the matter is the policy of this administration has been an abject failure. And speaking of freedom being on the march, the only thing on the march is Iran. It's closer to a bomb. Its proxies now have a major stake in Lebanon as well as in the Gaza Strip with Hamas. We will change this policy with thoughtful, real live diplomacy that understands that you must back Israel in letting them negotiate, support their negotiation, and stand with them, not insist on policies like this administration has.
Has this administration's policy been an abject failure, as the senator says, Governor?
No, I do not believe that it has been, but I'm so encouraged to know that we both love Israel, and I think that is a good thing to get to agree on, Senator Biden. I respect your position on that. No.
I'm so glad that we agree on Israel, because, you know, as a housewife from Alaska, Israel is near and dear to my heart. I get it. You're used to seeing this shit. You're used to seeing both sides bend over backwards for Israel. I get it. I fucking get it. And look, Israel's done itself no favors, the Israeli right wing, by investing into fucking Sarah Palin's and fucking what's her name, Lauren Boebert, fucking Israeli fucking fashion models. Like, they've done themselves no fucking favors by investing into those fucking people. So don't think I'm taking sides in this. I'm saying don't fucking trust anybody. That's the fucking theme of this show. Don't fucking trust anybody. And I get why you would think that this is the general policy of America, is to bend over backwards and take it from Israel, because guess what? That's been what we've accepted in our lifetime. But compare that, Joe Biden, that grandpa ice cream cone immoral faggot, to this. Also, I want to note that I sped this up to 1.5 speed. Insane the amount of deterioration this man has suffered.
I'm of the view, as you know, that the conduct of the response in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, has been over the top. I think that, as you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. I talked to Bibi to open in the Gaza Strip. The initial delay, I think that we would be able to extend that so that we could increase the prospect that this fighting in Gaza changes. There's also...
Wow, what happened to being Mr. No better friend to Israel than Mr. Joe Biden, Mr. Grandpa Cone? Bread fresh. I know, it's back. Momentary lapse. I'll give it a second. But, yeah, we're back. Grandpa ice cream cone. Bread fresh. Shocking, right? Because I get it. My lifetime, your lifetime, that's been the norm. That's been what you've accepted as the norm, is bend over backwards foreign policy for Israel. But let's go back in time to when we were wee whippersnappers, to happy George H.W. Bush times. What was his relationship like with Israel? It wasn't exactly the best. You think they were bend over backwards support for Israel in the Bush administration, the first one? Haha. Strap in, folks. Let me teach you a little bit about history.
Like most American presidents of the modern era, George H.W. Bush was tested by upheavals in the Middle East.
America and the world drew a line in the sand, and tonight, America and the world have kept their word.
Soon after Iraq invaded Kuwait in 1990, Bush put together a multinational coalition, including even Arab countries, determined to liberate Kuwait. After war broke out in January 1991, Iraq's dictator Saddam Hussein launched Scud missiles at Israel, causing damage, spreading fear, and blamed for at least one death. Israel's military strategy would always say retaliate, but Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir agreed reluctantly to requests by President Bush not to strike back, because that could disrupt the U.S.-led coalition as it defeated the Iraqis. After the war, the U.S.-Israel alliance was marked by misunderstandings. Shamir thought Bush should be grateful for Israel's restraint, so the Israelis confidently asked the U.S. government to provide loan guarantees so that $10 billion could be borrowed by Israel to pay for bringing in and absorbing millions of new citizens from the Soviet Union as that superpower was falling apart. Bush, though very sympathetic towards Soviet Jews, and he also had helped Ethiopian Jews get to Israel, saw an opportunity to demand two concessions: that Israel stop building settlements in the West Bank, and that Israel agree to attend a Middle East peace conference where Palestinian negotiators would take part. That did happen in Madrid, Spain, a breakthrough as Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon also sat with Israelis. But resenting Bush's pressure on Israel, American Jewish organizations, including AIPAC, organized a lobbying day at the Capitol. And Bush, in the White House, decided to confront the pro-Israel lobby more bluntly than other presidents had done.
Well, I heard today there were something like 1,000 lobbyists on the Hill working the other side of the question. We got one lonely little guy down here doing it.
The image he tried to create, the President of the United States overwhelmed by American citizens giving their views at the Capitol, was quite a surprise, and political pundits agree that it lost Bush and other Republicans a lot of support from American Jewish voters, at least in 1992. In fact, although other presidents since then have recommended that Israel rein in the settlement construction, it was George H.W. Bush who appreciated Israel in many ways, but strongly felt that adding more settlements in land he believed should be a Palestinian state was a mistake. Dan Raviv, I-24 News, Washington.
George H.W. Bush wanted a fucking Palestinian state. Didn't want extra settlements. They didn't always bend over backwards for Israel, contrary to popular belief. And then, I don't know. Something happened. Guys, I don't know. Something happened. What about Spirit? What about the USS Liberty? Yeah, that was Lyndon Baines Johnson, one of the most pro-Zionist presidents at the time. One of the most pro-Zionist presidents, like at the most pro-Zionist president. Oh, and who was before him? Oh, that's right, Kennedy. Like, it depends on who's in office. Like, the U.S. doesn't always bend over backwards for the Zionists. It's just in your lifetime, in your particular lifetime, because of some event, I don't know, some event. Something with dancing, something with vans, I don't know, because of something you think, because of your experience, because of your lifetime, that it's always been this way. It hasn't always been this way. Not only that, it's changed in your lifetime. Let me show you. Let me demonstrate. Let me take you back in time in the Moose Heaven time machine to a simpler time. Let me set the stage. Obama is president, but he's in his second term. He's gonna be out of the fucking White House anytime now. But over in Israel, guess what?
At Judaism's holiest site, Benjamin Netanyahu gave a prayer of thanks for his political comeback.
I appreciate the decision by Israel's citizens to elect me and my friends against all odds and in the face of powerful forces.
His surprising and crushing victory, the product of an 11th-hour push for right-wing votes, promising there would be no Palestinian state on his watch, and whipping up fear on Facebook with a warning to the base: get out and vote to prevent Arab parties from unseating him.
The right regime is in danger. The Arab voters are coming in huge amounts to the polls.
But those hard-lined statements that saved his job may only deepen his bad blood with the Obama administration, who was privately hoping for his ouster. U.S. officials say they are waiting to see if Netanyahu dials back. If he doesn't, it could be a game changer for both the peace process and U.S.-Israel relations.
Certainly, the fact that he's changed his position.
Oh shit! Remember her?
Has an impact. I'm not going to prejudge what we'll do. The election was yesterday. Those comments were made 2 days ago. So I'm sure we'll continue to discuss.
But Netanyahu is unlikely to reverse course.
His essential concern that Israel withdrawing territory exposes itself to more danger is something he feels in his heart, and he believes that many, probably most Israelis share with him.
Republican lawmakers overjoyed at Netanyahu's re-election. Senator Rand Paul tweeting his congratulations, and Senator John McCain calling him the comeback kid. After lobbying Congress and the American people against President Obama's policy toward Iran, Netanyahu is likely headed for another showdown with the White House ahead of the March 31st deadline for a nuclear deal.
This prime minister is way too committed on the Iran issue. It's almost messianic for him, and he's going to want to fight. So there is a real opening there for some continuing tensions over this deal.
So, let me set the stage. Obama is on his way out, and Netanyahu is on his way in. What if I told you I can show you when the move away from Israeli dominant foreign policy in the United States happened? Yeah, you grew up during the Bush administration. You grew up during the the Iraq-Afghanistan bullshit. I get it. But were you paying attention in the waning hours of Obama's administration when Netanyahu was coming in and saying that they would not accept a Palestinian state no matter what? And then Obama did this?
It was Benjamin Netanyahu's turn to get schooled by the White House, which very publicly said that words matter and that there are consequences. I mean, the president has now called Netanyahu, and there was a word of congratulations, but he also brought up these highly controversial things that Netanyahu said just before his re-election, namely that he said there would never be a two-state solution with Palestine while he was prime minister, and that his supporters should counteract all of the Arabs going to the polls in droves, as he put it. The White House calling this divisive, saying that it erodes the shared values between the U.S. and Israel. I mean, the press secretary mentioned no fewer than 19 times yesterday during the press briefing that as a result, the U.S. is now reevaluating its position moving forward, even though Netanyahu has now walked back virtually everything he said. Listen.
Now, the prime minister of Israel says earlier this week, days before an election, that this is a principle that he no longer subscribes to and that his nation no longer subscribes to. That means the United States needs to rethink our approach. That this principle has been the foundation of a number of policy decisions that have been made here. And now that that foundation has been eroded, it means that our policy decisions need to be reconsidered.
And part of that
Like, do you hear what's being said? 2015, 16. Let me take you back in time. Obama's on his way out. Netanyahu's on his way back in. And already they're talking about there needs to be a shift in policy decisions related to Israel. And this is in the waning days of Obama's administration right before the election. Let me remind you, we're in the Moose Heaven time machine. This is before the 2016 election. This is before anybody knows that fucking Donald Trump is gonna be elected. In the Obama administration, they're already talking about moving away from Israel because of their move stance against a Palestinian state.
The White House says does include the U.S. constantly standing up for Israel in the UN. If any of this upsets Netanyahu, well, he always has House Speaker John Boehner to talk to, who's just announced that he is going to go to Israel within the next 2 weeks and meet with Netanyahu.
This is all back in the pre-Trump times. And then what happens next? In the waning days of Obama's administration is the last fucking fuck you to Israel. Again, whether you like Israel or not, we're just talking about history. We're just talking about what fucking happened. And this is what fucking happened. And nobody was paying attention. In the fucking waning days of Obama's administration, in the last fucking days before anybody knew whether it was going to be Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, this happened.
And turning to politics now, President Obama slammed at the national menorah lighting ceremony, a rabbi furious over his decision not to stop a UN vote against Israel settlements. This as tensions grow between the president and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Our very own Kristen Fisher live in Washington, D.C. this morning with the very latest on that. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Jackie. Well, the Israeli government is accusing the Obama administration of not only refusing to block that UN resolution, but also creating and campaigning for its passage. Well, that prompted a very strong reaction from senior White House officials. They say, quote, the U.S. did not draft this resolution, nor did the U.S. introduce this resolution. The Egyptians, in partnership with the Palestinians, are the ones who began circulating an earlier draft of the resolution. But at the same time, the U.S. did refused to use its veto power at that Security Council vote condemning Israeli settlements on the West Bank. Well, the move prompted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to recall the U.S. ambassador, saying friends don't take friends to the Security Council.
Over decades, American administrations and Israeli governments have disagreed about settlements, but we agreed that the Security Council was not the place to resolve this issue. We knew that going there would make negotiations harder and drive peace further away.
Well, tensions between the U.S. and Israel escalated even more overnight when the rabbi who was in charge of the national Hanukkah menorah lighting ceremony, which is held right outside of the White House, he used the ceremony to publicly criticize the Obama administration's actions.
I know that some of us are so sad at what happens there with regard to Israel. We must remember that the way to counter any darkness, any disappointment, is not with harsh rhetoric, not with anger, but by creating light.
Or perhaps through a new administration. The Israeli prime minister says he's looking forward to working with President-elect Trump come January 20th, which is now Inauguration Day, just 25 days away. Hard to believe, Jackie and Lisa.
25 days. Can you imagine?
25 days.
I can't even believe this year's over.
Can't believe it. Oh my God.
It's been a fast one. All right, thank you, Kristen, live on our nation's capital.
So weird. I've always found that weird that Obama sent a giant fuck you to Israel on his way out. And then out of nowhere, Donald Trump gets elected. It's always been weird to me. Not only that, talk about the memory hole, talk about sweeping things under the rug, talk about things that everybody forgot. Let's talk about this. Oh, in that last video, we talked about how Obama had nothing to do with that UN resolution, right? Right?
Out front now, the spokesman for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, David Keyes, is joining me. David, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you.
So you say that you have ironclad information, is how you've put it, that President Obama, the Obama administration, was behind the resolution. But the White House denies this. David, are you saying that they are lying?
What I'm saying is that we have ironclad information from sources in the Arab world and internationally. And we're going to share that information with the incoming administration through the proper channels. And if the new administration chooses to share that information, that's their prerogative.
So are they lying then?
Well, all I can say is that we have that information. It's very clear to us. It's not in doubt. And we are going to pass it through the proper channels.
Why not share that information right now?
Well, because I think that's something that should be shared with the new administration, and that's their choice whether they want to share it or not. But it really goes to the heart of our disappointment about this resolution, which not only was crafted in part by the Obama administration, but was pushed heavily as well by it. And it's a resolution which denies the fact that there is Israeli sovereignty over the Western Wall, one of our holiest sites, that Jews have prayed to for literally thousands of years. And this resolution actually calls that occupied Palestinian territory. That's outrageous. That is shameful. That is inaccurate.
CNN is new reporting that the Prime Minister has actually ordered the Foreign Ministry to suspend all working ties with the 12 UN Security Council members who voted in favor of the resolution. The U.S. abstained. Others voted in favor, of course. David, is this a step towards cutting diplomatic ties here?
Well, some of those ties will be tampered for a period, and ambassadors that voted for this latest resolution have been called in to the foreign ministry as well to be told our opinion of how deeply disappointed we are in this resolution. And I think that's only natural because it really is an outrageous resolution. I want your viewers just to capture what this resolution is doing and what it means and how much it pushes peace further away. Think about that Western Wall that everyone can picture, that holy site to Jews who have had a presence there for thousands of years, except when they were ethnically cleansed from that actual area. To call that wall occupied Palestinian territory is just a non-starter. It's absolutely outrageous. And what it tells the Palestinians is there's no need to come to the negotiating table. You shouldn't do that because you're going to get everything you want. But we believe that peace actually comes about when the parties will sit together, when the parties will negotiate together, when we will recognize one another. And the Prime Minister has called hundreds of times to meet with President Abbas.
Let me cut through the bullshit here. The point is, I'm saying don't trust anybody. But everybody got memory hold about this. Everybody forgot about this. Unequivocal support for Israel, bend over backwards for Israel. That's all I hear. But what's the truth? What was Trump saying? What was the orange man saying in his own fucking term?
As far as settlements, I'd like to see you hold back on settlements for a little bit.
And secondly, on the settlement issue, are you both on the same page?
As far as settlements, I'd like to see you hold back on settlements for a little bit. We'll work something out, but I would like to see a deal be made. I think a deal will be made. Bibi and I have known each other a long time. A smart man, great negotiator, and I think we're going to make a deal. It might be a bigger and better deal than people in this room even understand. That's a possibility. So let's see what we do.
Let's try it.
Doesn't sound too optimistic, but that's...
It's not exactly bend over backwards support for Israel. I get it. It's the art of the deal. I get it. I get it if that's your perception of U.S. foreign policy, is that it is all bend over backwards for Israel. Look, they do. I'm not saying they don't, but I'm saying it's changed since 2004. Look, don't fucking be a boomer. That was 20 fucking years ago. We've come a long way from Joe Biden and Sarah Palin tripping over themselves to kiss Israel's ass. That was 20 fucking years ago. Nowadays, this is the White House's statement on a Palestinian state. They won't affirm nor condone nor deny, but they absolutely want to push for a Palestinian state, which is antithetical to anything that you grew up with during the Iraq War. So understand that there's been a shift in U.S. foreign policy.
I know we had a tiny exchange about this yesterday, but when you say that the idea of your respect or U.S. respect for sovereignty does not extend to the Palestinians, right?
We are committed to the establishment. We are committed to the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. They are not currently
so they have no sovereignty.
We are trying to establish sovereignty for the Palestinians.
But currently they don't.
We are trying to establish it for them.
Okay, so can you think of any other, like, how does this compare to Taiwan, for example?
I think this is
no, in terms of your belief in sovereignty. So you have a one China policy as it relates to China and Taiwan, which indicates that Taiwan is not sovereign, and yet you treat them as a sovereign entity, maybe not a state, but a sovereign entity. With the Palestinians, do you treat them with the same kind of regard, that maybe they're not a sovereign state, or you do not recognize them as a sovereign state, but at least they have a right of self-determination?
So we do not treat them as a sovereign state, but we are trying to establish an independent Palestinian state. Let me get to the answer. And we do support self-determination for the Palestinian people.
Okay, but they do not currently enjoy, under your
the administration's thinking and previous administrations' thinking as well. They do not enjoy the rights of sovereignty that, say, Israel or Jordan or Australia or Madagascar have.
So I don't know what you mean by the question, but we do not recognize them as an independent state. That's a factual matter.
And
but we
so-
are trying to establish.
And thus, they have no right or claim to sovereignty.
They are not a sovereign state at this point, but we are trying to establish them as one.
So, don't get it twisted. They want to establish a Palestinian state. And what's a Palestinian state? It's a Chinese proxy. Don't get it fucking twisted. Don't think that just because you don't like Israel, that the Palestinians are some fucking brave cause to get behind and light yourself on fucking fire for. That's the point. That's the point I'm trying to make. I'm not taking anybody's side in this. I'm saying if you take anybody's side, you're getting got. Don't fall for it. And I'm saying, as we wind down this stream, thank you all for joining us, me. But do you know who saw all of this coming? The Nostradamus who predicted all of this. What if I told you it was Mad fucking Max? Mel fucking Gibson. Madman Max himself saw into the fucking future like a mad anti-Semitic Nostradamus, and he reached forward to send us a message, a warning from the past that we didn't heed.
It's interesting, you know, there was one time when Mel actually got in touch with us to be interviewed. It was during a federal election, I think 1987. Now, he said he was so upset about where Australia was heading. This was a very different Mad Max.
Questions about this foreign debt and where this foreign debt's coming from. You get hold of this foreign debt to get us out of trouble. And then they have something called foreign aid, which is, it'd be okay if it was feeding starving children or something, but it's not. They're giving many millions to countries like Red China, North Vietnam, South Korea to develop steel industries. And they give this money to them interest-free. But you know who has to pay the interest on that money? The Australian taxpayer has to pay the interest on that money. And to add insult to injury, they are creating industries in competition with our own steel industry. Now, they're telling us from both sides to be more productive, stick together, get in front, be more productive, get ahead again, and at the same time, they're slipping a quid overseas to make sure that they successfully stifle our own industries.
You're obviously hot under the collar.
I am damn hot under the collar, and I care about this nation. And
You don't cut off Mad fucking Max. And before you say, but Spirit, I wanna appease everybody tonight. I wanna appease everybody. I wanna show that I'm not taking any side on this. And to prove that, do you know who forgave Mad Max? The king of Jewish comedy, Jackie Mason. I have nothing on this. And therefore, I turn it over.
Rant against Jews way too seriously. Exactly why is Jackie so forgiving?
Why are you so forgiving?
I'll be honest with you. It's not that I'm so forgiving. It's that all these people are very sick. They're getting a vicious, sick, perverted, sadistic thrill out of this whole thing. Look at the glee in them. Look at the happiness about catching him, because they're all basically failures, or they never amounted to anything, or there's actors who are struggling to make a living, and they've always been envious and bitter and jealous of a guy who makes such a huge success. So now when the guys are being a great crusader against anti-Semitism, they found an excuse. It's all an excuse, a rationalization, a phony excuse to bury this guy, because they're enjoying it with such a sick, perverted pleasure.
But he did say a lot of nasty things.
Now,
as a Jew, how do you feel about that?
Now, let me be very honest with you. Nobody could excuse these remarks. But do you ever take it so seriously when a guy is drunk and stupid, he's laying on the floor, and he says some ridiculous things? People curse their own mother in a state like that. They tell their whole family to drop dead. I mean, the whole family would be going to a cemetery by Thursday.
But nevertheless, you know, they say it's a truth serum. You don't buy that?
They say it's a truth serum. You got to be a moron. You got to be the phoniest, wretched fraud in the world to claim that it's a truth serum. If it's your family or your friends and they say something in a drunken state, you say he was drunk and you forget about it. In a drunken state, you might bang your head against the wall. Does that mean you really want to break your head? You might go into a car.
So you're not bitter toward
I want to
Mel.
ask you a question. Did you ever notice how people beg a guy not to drive when he's drunk, and he drives anyway? Because he doesn't even know he's drunk, and he doesn't even know he shouldn't be driving, and he doesn't even know that 10 seconds later he's dead.
That's a very good point.
Now, if you want to kill yourself, does that prove that you really, if you gave him a gun, he would kill himself? If you gave him a gun, I don't think he'd kill himself, but he's too sick and drunk to know that he's about to kill himself. I want to ask you a question. These people who are attacking him, they're all saying the same thing in Hollywood. I would never work with him again. These are all failures who never worked with him before. He never asked them to work with him. He don't need them. He makes a fortune and they can get a job, and they're threatening him that they won't work with him again.
So you think a lot of this is jealousy?
Jealousy and hate and contempt for a guy who's doing too good. It's also with this guy Foxman, this head of the ADL. I'm not a fake from top to bottom. I don't talk about people. It's not my nature. But he's
you really haven't badmouthed anyone yet.
He's a total fake. Let's be honest about it. Anybody who makes a life out of fighting racism, in effect, has to blow up racism in order to justify himself for his job he has.
Whoa, Jackie, whoa, Jackie, don't. You're exposing the goddamn business. You can't say that shit. What?
Out of fighting racism, in effect, has to blow up racism in order to justify himself for his job he has. Otherwise, he'd have to go to work. Otherwise, he'd have to get up in the morning and get a real job.
But Jackie, let's look at this. He wants to. ABC has already cut plans to co-produce his Holocaust special, so that's out. Is he going to have any ill effects from all of this in Hollywood?
He might have ill effects because people love burying a guy who's big. If a guy on a bicycle breaks down, you cry for him. If he breaks down on a Rolls Royce, you applaud. People who make a living from fighting anti-Semitism, like Al Sharpton, and from fighting racism, they have to convince themselves there's racism every place. And that every minute they're about to blow up every Jew in America. Because otherwise he would have to go to work for a living. He fears a job a lot more than he fears anti-Semitism. Getting up in the morning is the main fear that Foxman has. And all of a sudden he made himself the judge and the jury of this man.
Well, a lot of people. There was that rabbi who suggested that maybe Mel Gibson should apologize to his congregation on Yom Kippur. What'd you make of that?
He almost said 9/11 instead of Yom Kippur. Weird.
Weird.
Why? Because nobody knows who this rabbi is. Who cares who he is? All of a sudden he becomes a producer. All of a sudden he's producing a show with him and Mel Gibson, and he'll become the star of the show. And then you'll see it in the newspapers starring Rabbi Schwartz with Mel Gibson. He'll probably get second billing because it's another rabbi looking for attention. They decided they're the judge and jury of this whole situation. They become a personal mafia now because who knows who they are? Who would pay attention to them? Foxman and this other guy are loving it. They're threatening him every day about how much he apologized.
So
and he never apologized.
Jews who are speaking out against, well, there are some Jews who aren't in that camp who are just legitimately offended. You say they should get over themselves?
They're nuts if they're offended because you're offended if you know anything about his life.
Yeah.
His life has been a mecca of decency all of his life. He never offended a Jew in his life personally. How a guy lived for 50 years is what should count, not one remark when you're drunk. He never joined a club but he's anti-Semitic. He never refused to give a guy a tip at a restaurant because he found out he's Jewish. His house doesn't have a sign in front of it that says no Jews allowed. What did he ever do that's anti-Jewish in his life? A whole 50 years of decency doesn't count because you made one remark. Now they say he apologized, but he didn't apologize enough. He should apologize a little higher. He should apologize in the morning. He only apologized at night. He should apologize. He was apologized when he was cheating. He should have gotten up to apologize. He should apologize at least 2 more times, 4 more times, 32 times. Now they want him to get, now they want him to get circumcised.
All right, stop, Hank. It's a family show, Jackie.
It's a family show, but
Jackie.
I think if we should have decency is more important. And if we brought decency into this world, then stop attacking people because you never amounted to anything.
Jackie. You're yelling at me, too. I don't know. Calm down. It's all right. You're like Joe Pastardi coming back at me. Jackie Mason, thank you very much. Willa Moore.
Oh, guys. It's been a wild evening. I don't want to get it twisted. I want to stand by my words. I want to stand by where I stand. What do I say at the end of every stream? In the pursuit of truth, trust nobody. Right? Don't get it twisted and think, I'm taking sides. My point. And don't get it lost in translation from Hebrew or Arabic or English. Don't get it mistranslated. My point is it's a lot more complicated than a lot of you are making it out to be. If you've got your criticisms of Israel, cool. I do too. Lots of us do, but also don't live in 2004. Understand that 2024 ain't 2004. Geopolitically, foreign policy wise, understand things are not static and they never have been. That's all I'm asking. But thank you. Thank you guys for being here. All I'm saying is, guys, in the pursuit of truth, trust nobody. Nobody. And also, don't fucking light yourself on fire for Palestine just out of spite for Israel, because that's some dumb shit. So, good night.